Hey Sandy, good afternoon.
Hey, hello. How are you?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Yay. Good, thank you. Release 4's out.
Mm, nice stuff, eh? How's that going?
Well, haven't heard any complaints.
As
Have you
expected.
checked it out?
I haven't had the chance to, but I said I would yesterday. Carl gave me a heads up, so I will
Mm,
definitely check it out, yeah.
yeah, it's exciting stuff. A lot of new functionality.
And you know we love our shiny new toys.
Yes, so many new toys I actually haven't managed to get as far as testing all of the new shiny toys. There's some I haven't even looked at yet.
But I mean, as
Just
long as there
too
aren't any
busy.
issues, yeah, I can imagine so much going on.
I'm
But
sure there will
congrats
be,
on the
but it's
release,
open
though.
source.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
You
there will
love
be
to hear it.
some challenges.
Yeah, but at least the support and the feedback loop is,
Mm,
great.
mm.
So
Yes,
even
it
if there
is.
are issues, it's not like people spend a lot of time with unresolved issues, you know. I normally just check, sometimes for the response, sometimes just sometimes yourself. So that's really
Mm.
great.
Yeah, it's encouraging that there's more people in the Get Help channel now chiming in. So that's great. We check where justice is.
He is here.
Oh,
Hello.
hello.
Rodney,
Hey,
I hope
Justice.
it's
Good
just you
afternoon.
today. Oh, there's Sam. Okay, hi Sam. I
I
was just
just
about to say, I hope it's just Rodney today.
hi, yes, Andy.
My brain is so soft at the moment. Guys, it has been a very long 18 months. So let's see who else we get who will join us today.
Is
Um,
it not always soft justice?
yeah, it's like we did our release on Friday. Finally.
Oh, understood. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's finally done. It's out there. We're now doing sort of the marketing and launch preparation and everything for going through that process next week. So at the
Nice.
moment, we're considering it sort of like a soft launch
Very cool.
while
Congratulations.
we bed everything down. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. I mean, obviously, there's a 18 months is a very, very long time. There's a reason why you guys at Loop release every 3 months. I would certainly never ever want to release an 18-month open source project ever again.
Yeah, it's painful, but at least doing frequently makes it more bearable.
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent we're lucky because the scope is almost entirely new functionality. On the Loop side, it's more of a safe, agile approach because you're integrating constantly into the code base, right?
Yeah, correct.
And the code base itself is stable but broad. I don't think
Yeah,
there's a lot of sort of like brand new functionality that goes in on top of what you already have.
it's not
What?
usual. I mean, yeah, it's not
No,
non-existent, but not frequent. Yeah.
yeah. I think probably the biggest thing that I am aware of that's sort of in the backlog is dispute resolution. which is completely something new?
Yeah, these are kinds of things. For example, like when we had ISO and FX, those were new. And then if we have like a V2 of the PISP functionality, the third-party functionality, but those are rare. Mostly it's the evolution of the software. Yeah, you're right.
Well, hopefully that's where we are now as well. Evolution. I'm very excited. Okay, let's see. What have we got? Hi, Brian.
Hi,
And
just
shall we? How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing fine. You?
I'm all right, thank you. I don't know if we have sort of the I wouldn't want to say a quorum, but if we have a lot more that we want to throw into sort of the conversation as far as requirements are concerned, I almost want to put it out there to the people who are currently here. We spent a lot of time talking about the approach, what our acceptance criteria is going to look like, what the definition of done is going to look like. I think we have maybe resolved most of the highlights. For me, at the risk of seeming impatient about getting on with it, I wonder if we have made enough progress to actually start implementing. I don't know what that looks like. So it's like, are we ready to go, do you guys think? And what do we need to do to be able to make that decision? And Rodney, I'm kind of like looking at you here because you're Foley's stand-in for this process. And he's supposed to be leading this working group, which means you are supposed to be leading this working group in his absence. So what do you say?
Well, I think we're mostly good to go, but the one question that's sort of like still lingering in my mind is in relation to, I guess, database tuning. I'm keeping in mind like the number of components which, will have database access, which is like all the rules, TMS, and so forth. I'm just trying to figure out because I think Postgres by default ships with I think it's a 50 connections in its configuration. I'm wondering if we don't need a connection pool around the database to make it easier for people who want to scale up, TMS.
Yes.
So,
I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. I have flirted with connection pooling previously. I can't remember which one it was, PG pool or whatever. Just for the full stack, right? Or the Tazama stack. I don't know if you guys had all seen, but we had now renamed it. It is no longer called full-stack-docker-tazama. It is now just called the Tazama stack. So that repo is now shorter. So for the Tazama stack, I did consider connection pooling purely because, like, believe it or not, just when the system starts up in the in the stack inside Docker on a local machine, the number of things that hits the database during that initialization actually ends up consuming all of the connections. So the backup alternative plan there was to just bump the number of connections to 1,000, which helped, I guess. But that feels like a very fragile kind of thing. So you're correct. We should probably be considering some sort of connection pooling interface or a middleware. I think it'll help with performance and it'll definitely help with scalability. And there are a number of options available. I don't know if you have one that you would upfront recommend, but this is probably a Googleable problem. And if we really wanted to, it can become a bake-off, but I don't even know if that's necessary. Pick the one that's open source with the largest number of stars. It's the highest turnover of code, I guess, unless you have another suggestion. But so like connection pooling, yes, one thing. The other thing is, while we're talking about the database architecture, right, we have proposed for a production deployment that if you are deploying Tazama and you are deploying the data lakehouse, you shouldn't be connecting the data lakehouse directly to the Tazama core database. That database is very performance sensitive, right? So if you are doing all of your data extraction straight from the database, like even if it's on a scheduled basis or you're trickle feeding or whatever the case is, you're adding additional load to the database that we want to avoid. So the pattern that was proposed at the time is that you are basically deploying into production a sort of a replica, right? So it's like a real-time staging replica of the Postgres database where your replica instantly replicates the data from the core, but then becomes the instance from which you are going to feed data into the data lakehouse. Now that architecture or that deployment architecture isn't actually in the Tazama stack, right? Because it doesn't need it there. It's demo exploration. So similar to the connection pooling, which I would want to put in the stack because it's maybe useful having that there in place and showing people how it works and what it does. But I would also then want to put the database replica into the definition of ready and the deployment, right? Because Helm will have to govern that deployment. It'll have to set up that database replica. So those are kind of like my two comments on your gap. Where do you think that leaves us? Does that sound like a workable plan?
It does to me. That's a good point, actually. You bring up. I was about to drop a link in chat with maybe useful information there. But yeah, I think once we get the pooling and the high availability slash replica portion sorted, then we'll be good to go. Not sure if there's anything jumping up from Brian or Sam's side.
Not really from my side.
Let me quickly do this here so you guys can see the notes I'm taking. Right. Okay. Here we have me. No Don today, which is almost unusual at this point. Sam. Okay. That is all the people. And then just a quick one here. Part of the Helm deployment process. I suppose it would be optional because if you're not actually deploying the lakehouse, you don't need the replica. But I'm assuming you're going to need another kind of data warehousing solution because at some point you're going to want to analyze the data in your evaluations. You're going to want to do your topology and rule modeling and run queries and so on. So you should probably have that replica anyway.
I agree.
I don't know, strong yes this as well. Okay. I'm not going to recap this because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to compose all of the information that we have here into some sort of spec. And then maybe we should circulate that spec for everybody just to review and do a bit of a gap analysis and then check, and then we should go straight into implementation. I mean, for me, this is almost like the timing is convenient because Tazama 4 was just released and we're about to sort of announce that publicly and above the line. So the people on the inside know about it, but soon it'll go out to everybody else as well. And it would be useful to also be able to tell people how to deploy this in Helm sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we're going to end up in the same situation now where people are deploying it out of the Tazama stack, which they really shouldn't be doing. Okay, so
Okay. On that, I was trying something. I was trying to deploy the TMS service using Helm, and I was able to get it working, except I did not populate the variables. So maybe I could share the link.
Okay. So you've already done this in Helm.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So you're saying that what's basically, I wouldn't want to say missing because that's already great progress, but the next step is to basically parameterize it and make it sort of production ready.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, maybe I could share my screen and show
Yes.
the
Yeah,
repo.
please do. Let me stop sharing.
Just a minute. So it's something that I've been looking at recently in the past week. So here's okay, here's the repo. So this is the repo. What I added was here's the charts folder, and here is where we have our templates, which has our manifests, and then we have our values here, where we also define the images, the secrets that may be needed. I enable ingress there. I've not tested it yet if it works. So these are the variables I'm seeing that I've not populated them yet.
Yeah, fantastic.
But the workflows. I also added the workflows. So we have two workflows. We have one to do the Helm package and build the package. So what this does, it builds your Docker image, pushes it to Docker Hub, tests the Helm chart. And then creates the Helm charts, tests it, and then also pushes it to Docker Hub. And then they deploy job or workflow, pretty much just deploys it to a Kubernetes cluster. So you can see, I was able to get all the workflows working. So you can see, not so long ago though.
Huh.
And
That's
let me see if I can show it in the cluster also. So here it is in the cluster. Yeah, but when we review the logs, you'll see that it's complaining about the variables that were not added. Like the APM server config, it's just a single service with no other service. So the support services like the elk stack are not there. So this should be expected.
Yeah. Well, the elk stack, yeah, I don't want to say that too loudly, but the elk stack is kind of non-functional at the moment. We definitely want to get to a point where we can start replacing that as well. So I wouldn't worry about that right now.
Yeah.
But
But
you know what I'm looking at this, right? I'm thinking between the work that you've done now here and the work that Dom has done, right, already as well. So between the two of you, you've actually managed to get this working, right? So do you want to move this into a actual Tazama repo? And then we can create work issues around it, right? So we've got a baseline. And for me, it's like if you're following an agile process in the open source, what you want right up front is some sort of MVP, right? And this is it, right? This is an MVP. It kind of works. You're going to have to sort of manually hack a few steps together to make it work for yourself, but it's a starting point, right? And then we can
Yeah.
say, okay, cool. What are the next steps that we need to follow practically to get this to, let's say, our production grade version of this? And then that's just a question of creating issues. It's like, okay, cool. This is where we are now. This is an issue that we need to implement to get us to the next step. So, for example, to create the values file and to be able to populate the values, documentation around it, GitHub Actions, integration into the repo. So you see you've got stuff here inside TMS. It actually then becomes a situation of the process, which is issue-driven development and delivery, basically just helping us to complete the work, starting with the foundation that you've put together here. Do you think something like that is viable?
Yeah, it sounds viable to me. Yeah. Don't know about the others.
I mean, for me, it's like, this is a test, I think, also for, community effort. And Sam, I'm going to throw this out to you, maybe also just for your input on sort of like how would you see something like this working? If we've got a work stream here already, right? And we've
Yeah,
got people willing to work on it. It's just a question of, finding a way to realize the work in a constructive and productive way.
yeah, I'm actually happy to try it out. We need to figure out the integration between how the module loop, and that would involve uh, more work and debugging, unless there is someone who did that before. But yeah, happy to try out deploying and getting the same errors that you're getting. Rodney.
Yeah. I mean, this is also something. It's like all we need is somebody to tell us what to do next and what to do when.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I think if we can define like a sequence saying, okay, it can be as simple as this: run these two commands, Helm install the prerequisites, Helm install Tazama stack, and that should be it. And then there can be a test command saying Helm test. And once we test, let's say you have a pre-configured set of tests that runs a fixed number of tests, and if it passes, then you can say that, okay, you have a successful Helm deployment. So that can be a good outcome. Obviously, we shouldn't wait for perfect, but I think that can be a good starting point from which we can evolve.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it can work. I'm very excited.
So are we there as of now? Just as you think, like, okay, there's a command to deploy the prerequisites, or the dependencies required, and then there is a Helm install command for deploying Tazama stack, and then a test command, or is that?
I think what we have is the Helm part, right? So for me, it's like I'm still kind of like, Brian, how did you get to the actual Kubernetes part?
Okay, that's okay. That's also help comes in, and that's where also the charts folder comes in. So okay, maybe as Sam was mentioned, we could add some steps describing how we get here. What was needed was okay to create the Helm folder. There's a Helm command that you can run, and it will generate this boilerplate, if you can call
Sure.
it.
Okay.
And then now the next step is just modifying your values, modifying your values.yaml to match your images, for example. If also you also have to modify your environment variables from here. One other thing maybe was you may also need to modify your deployment manifest. And that's because by default, when you run the Helm create command, it doesn't create a manifest with a sidecar container. But I noticed the TMS service utilizes a sidecar container. So pretty much that's all one may need to look at. It's actually not a lot when you look at it because the charts folder is something that you can also just copy to other repos, or you could run the Helm command, you get your boilerplate. The modification is not much. So yeah, we could add some documentation on how to get this working. And
Okay.
once you've configured the Helm charts and you've added workflows, you should be good to go.
Cool.
This builds the Docker image and packages your Helm chart and pushes it to Docker Hub, and then this deploys it to your cluster.
Okay. Yeah, got it, Rodney. Thanks. So question, why do we need to, I mean, if it is by design, that's fine. But I think in the previous GitHub comment that Justice made about the summary, I saw like that there was a registry that was being, I don't know if it was, but it looks like it's part of the plan to have a kind of a registry, whether on GitHub or somewhere where we'll have the actual packages from Helm charts.
Yes.
In which case, then we don't have to generate the charts locally. We can just get those from cloud, so to say. So
I mean, if I can quickly interject this, Sam. So that's a great idea, right? But that is also for me a great, how to put it, like a breakdown of the steps to deliver the end to end, right? Because the registry itself becomes a extension of the MVP. It's like, cool, we can do this ourselves. And in fact, we're going to have to give people the ability to do it themselves because they may want to tweak that. But once we've done that, we can now also add additional functionality to put it on a registry, which gives you that incremental thing where we don't have to build everything up front.
correct, yeah.
We can
Yeah, so
keep on improving this until we don't want to anymore.
Okay,
Increment
just
by
to add.
increment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Just to add, we actually with the workflows here, we actually pushing. We actually generate the Helm charts and push them to Docker Hub. We use Docker Hub as the Helm chart registry. And then
Okay.
when deploying, we just pull the chart from Docker Hub, and that's what we deploy with the deploy workflow.
Okay.
So, and given Tazama already has a Docker Hub account,
yeah, we can do that.
I think that should be straightforward.
Okay, yeah, that will be good because that will be then the official version of the Tazama stack, whatever. Sorry if I'm not using the right name here. Just
No,
going
that is the right time. Well
that's
done.
the right name. Okay.
I'm very happy.
And obviously there should be features to develop charts. To generate charts locally, but having that on the cloud, I think that will be the one that most people will be using. Most people will not want to generate unless it's for dev QA purposes or like in extreme cases of customization. So eventually, I think we'll just be talking about the charts that are there and people just deploying those Helm install and then either the release version or some build version or build number, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds great because that's exactly the kind of thing that we also intend with sort of some of our other fundamental artifacts, right? Is give people the least effort version of it, but then the customizable version is there for advanced users. I actually like that. And that would be a good place to start as well, because, pre-package those for the initial use case. And then make it configurable or customizable for follow-up use cases. And again, following what does our minimum viable product here look like? And then we just create issues to keep on improving this thing until, we feel like there's nothing to do better.
Yeah, so maybe to make it as easy for the users, configuring the charts folder can be a responsibility left to the community, so that the workflows deploy a complete Helm chart that users can now just pull and deploy on the environments.
Yes, yeah. I think that would be a good starting point, because most people, before even customizing, want to deploy a default version on dev QA purposes for exploration and see how it works. If we can make that work easily, I think that will be a good entry point. And from there, they can learn docs, look at references, and work on customizing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Quick question. I think Sam, you might have alluded to this earlier, but Brian, where are you actually deploying this onto? How did you get the Kubernetes and stuff up and running, and what can you teach us from your learnings there? Where is this running?
Okay, maybe one thing that made it easier was I deployed it to an existing Kubernetes cluster. And for the workflow, all I had to now provide was there's the kube config that provides access to that cluster, which is actually even defined here. So I just added it as a workflow secret, and that was all I needed to do. Well, once the runner has access to the cluster, it will just proceed and deploy.
How big is that cluster? I mean, can you show us what it looks like? I'm curious. I've
Well,
never seen
okay,
one before.
yeah. It's not the biggest cluster, but it's one of our existing clusters.
Is it running sort of on premises there, or is it cloud?
Oh, these are cloud one.
Okay.
So
GCP.
so these are just so it's only using for workers.
Okay.
Those are the resources, but it's a minimal cluster. There's not much workload running here.
Is that CPU running at 101%?
Well, yeah, this one.
What is running on that?
Maybe that's something we may need to look at, maybe.
No. I remember when we were doing the performance benchmarking process, the distribution of components across the infrastructure was a very fine-tuned recipe. Largely because of the distributed nature of the system. Something like the TMS API, for example, which is the front door, is only one component, but it has to handle all of the intake load. And then there's a one-to-one between the TMS API and the event director. And then the individual components, there's 33 rule processors that run. They basically run in parallel, but they're very lightweight. The big bottleneck, obviously, is the database, largely because when you start running transactions at high volume, all of those rule processors with their queries put the database under a lot of pressure. And then there's a lot of data intake back to the typology processor, and then it's one-to-one again after that. I think the typology processor took a lot of overhead. The database and the TMS API, I think those were the ones that consumed sort of more than their fair share of resources. I don't know, Rodney, if you can remember specifically, but I'll ask Kyle, because I think Kyle still has nightmares about the performance benchmarking recipe fine-tuning.
The elk stack was also pretty early, Java.
Yeah, that was a problem for us, right? Because the elk stack, we actually couldn't effectively monitor the performance at scale because the monitoring platform fell over all the time. It was very difficult because the number of messages that we were shipping for logging exceeded the traffic that the platform itself was handling. It was very, very challenging at the time. We eventually had to turn the monitoring off to be able to run the benchmarking at high performance, at high scale. That's something that we're definitely going to have to get back to at some point so that we can do effective logging, at least for managing performance metrics. So there's a very fine-tuned balance of components across the infrastructure to be able to get to sort of the right recipe for high scale. Low scale, I think, is fine. I mean, you can run, I don't know how much additional overhead you need to run a Kubernetes instance the same way, or a cluster the same way that we run the single instance Tazama stack, because I can run the Tazama stack on a powerful laptop, for example, right? Or a reasonably mid-sized desktop PC will run both the core and the extensions on a single device, which isn't bad. And you can get 1, 2, maybe if you're lucky, 5 evaluations a second out of a desktop, which for a small system deployment isn't bad at all. On the AWS that we were running, under batch ingestion, we were getting about 50 evaluations a second. That's on the current sandbox, which also surprised me. It's far better than we expected. So a single instance works. I'm kind of curious what the performance drop-off is between a single instance Tazama stack and a single instance Kubernetes cluster, meaning running everything on the same place. But I think this is very encouraging. So essentially, all you need to do is to feed in that cube file as a secret, and then you're fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
It feels like it's too easy, Brian.
So you have the cluster, you have the permissions, and yeah, we should be good to go. Just a couple of, or a few commands. I think Helm test would be a good addition. That can be an extension part of the MVP to ensure that all the services are running fine and configured correctly. But yeah, should be that easy, I think. Yeah.
So a question for you, Brian. Do you want me to create a repository for you to put this stuff into? Are you ready for that?
Okay, yeah, you could help with that.
Because I feel like this looks like it's a great start, and it is almost an MVP start already. So it might be good for us to just put this somewhere and then start working on it there, if you're comfortable. Let me see what we got here. We currently have a large number of Helm repositories. I would like to move away from the sort of the cloud named and even the on-premises Helm. Should we call this new repository just Tazama Helm, or is it Tazama Kubernetes? Tazama Helm.
How about
What do you
just
guys
Helm?
Will that be a repo or a subgroup?
No, it'll be a repo, brand new repo on its own.
Yeah, Tazama Helm sounds good to me.
Yeah, and it kind of sits adjacent to the Tazama stack. So you got Tazama stack and you've got Tazama Helm. Okay, I'm going to create that repository. Brian, I'm going to give you. You should already be a member of our organization, right?
Yeah, I'm not so yeah, but okay, I'm not so sure the GitHub account I provided.
I don't see an OMA here, so if you can send me a GitHub account, I can make sure that you're set up properly, and then
Okay,
I'll
let
give
me.
you code owner access on that repository,
Okay.
and everybody else for that matter. If you are in here, you can have privileged access to that repository. I'm going to create a working group team, and then add that team as a authorized pusher and committer to that repo. And then Brian, if you would be so kind, I love what you've done here. I think it's a great starting point. Let's kick off the next phase of this with that as the first commit for the delivery. I mean, I don't want to put you under pressure if you're comfortable, but I would very much love that if you were able to do that.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Thank you. I can see you're typing stuff there. Do you want to put it on the
Um,
screen? You don't have to share to everybody if you don't want to. I mean, that's very, very exciting. Thank you very much. I think then quickly just to check in, is there anything else that anybody wants to maybe cover off?
Just the one thing Sam mentioned actually,
Yeah.
just to maybe formalize or like add it to our definition of done, the Helm tests. I don't know if I know we mentioned it, but I don't think we explicitly wrote that down in the definition of done.
Let me add that here. Let me share so you can also see what I'm doing here. So there are a couple of things. And then actions. Now we have multiple actions. Issues here. Okay. Does that more or less capture everything? Have I missed anything? Rodney, what did you say about what did I can't remember now.
We
Did I
did
capture
note
it?
it on the first
Okay,
point,
good.
yes.
Yes, I did. Okay, cool. Was about the definition of done. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anyone? I'm super excited. Thank you very much, Brian. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. What we'll do next week is I'm going to get all of the stuff in place next week. And then next week, what I can suggest is once the repo is up and running, anybody who thinks of anything that we need to add or consider, functionality, features, work that needs to be done, just throw it into that repository as an issue. And then we can talk through it, prioritize it, and allocate work after that. And then we can start doing some stuff. This is very exciting. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
next week.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.